Welcome to the premiere episode of Courtroom Strategy with Oscar Michelen. And my name is Matthew Chan. I'm the co-host of this show. And we are really, really excited about bringing this show to you. This takes our ability to communicate with you on a whole different level, and it gives Oscar the opportunity to talk about so many subjects that he's really passionate about. But most importantly, we want to have a dialogue with you, our audience and listeners. We feel that today, with the fast pace of technology and how news is traveling, we had no choice but to do this and commit ourselves to this. So we really hope we enjoy this. But enough of me talking. How are you doing, Oscar?
Hey, how are you, Matt? I'm excited as you are. I think it's a great idea, and I know 20 years from now, when we look back on this, it's probably going to look very archaic and like when we look at silent movies today. But for right now, it's a fresh, exciting way to communicate with people and talk about legal issues of the day and topics of interest. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm glad that we're able to get this off the ground today.
Right. Wonderful. Now, to our audience members, there's a couple of things I want to let you know. We are doing this, obviously, through the Internet and using a little bit of technology magic to put this show together. But Oscar is in New York, and I'm here in Georgia, so that's how we're making this happen. Now, another thing I want to also just kind of warn you real quick to you listeners, there appears to be like a 1 or 2 second delay, so you'll have to forgive us. We're going to do our best not to step on each other, but that's the only disclaimer I want to put out to all of you there. So, anyway, Oscar, any quick comments before we jump in?
No, let's go. What's your first topic?
Oh, okay. Well, you listeners, you guys are going to love this topic, okay? And it's probably going to be a little bit unexpected, unless you have seen Oscar Michelen's Courtroom Strategy blog. And the subject we're going to talk about today is Lindsay Lohan for our premiere episode. Can you believe that?
Okay. Well, it could have been worse. I guess it could have been Charlie Sheen.
That'll be a future
so you want to talk about Lindsay Lohan? Okay. Well, actually, Lindsay Lohan's case has caught a lot of national attention. It's really been a marvel to me how a criminal case, one right after the other, of course, with Lindsay, has kind of captured the nation's attention in so many different ways. And it says so much, really, about our legal system, our society, and how we treat celebrities and high-profile folks who get involved in the criminal justice system. It's really been a very big learning experience for anyone who's really been paying attention.
Well, Oscar, what are the things that catch your eye?
Well, you see some of the things that I blogged about on my Courtroom Strategy blog, but predominantly, I represent a lot of artists myself. I represent a lot of both politicians, rap artists, musicians who find themselves caught up in the court system from time to time. And in addition to that, some cases are kind of high profile just because of the kind of case it is. Maybe the person isn't famous, but what they're accused of or the lawsuit that they filed or whatever has caught a lot of attention. And, those cases are very, very different for a lawyer to handle for a number of reasons. First of all, of course, is the client has their own expectations of what they want to, quote unquote, accomplish with the case. And they also want to make sure that their image, their public image, whatever it is protected. And just take a look at what Lindsay Lohan has done with that case, how she's turned the entire attention on the case onto herself with respect to what she's wearing, how she's coming to court, what she's doing. And it's not even so much about what she's done or what she's accused of doing, I should say, but how is she presenting herself when she comes into court?
It's crazy, though. How she's presenting herself. Is that intentional, you think, on her part?
I can tell you this. Every step is measured. There's no way that there's anything casual about what am I going to wear in court today, what am I going to do today, how am I going to dress, how's my hair going to be, what's the image that I want to present. That's for sure. from the dress that she wears, which ends up, selling out at every store that has it, to a piece of jewelry that was loaned to her that, you now can't find at, Judith Ripka stores, as she wore like an evil eye piece. And now all of a sudden, you can't get one anywhere. So, which that says a lot about, society today, of course, why we want to follow someone who's accused of multiple crimes, but that's a whole other story. So it's definitely clear that there's a thought of what should I look like when I come into court. I mean, if you see when she walks in, Matt, it's actually interesting because normally when someone's charged with a crime, you get this whole thing they call like a perp walk. They come in, they want to put a newspaper over their face, or they try to put their head down and walk in quickly. I mean, hers looks like a red carpet, like the Academy Awards. The paparazzi are off to the side. No one bothers her. She gets out of the limo. She walks, straight through the camera. She stops so people can take a picture of what she's wearing, and then she goes into court. Have you seen that?
Oh, absolutely. It's mind-boggling to me. But the thing about that I'm kind of, I guess, somewhat concerned with is what happens, what's the impact when you're in there with the judge? How does a judge perceive all of this? I mean, does it make it a circus? Does it even serve her? I mean, we know about the PR side, but I mean, as far as the case, I mean, one presumes that she's trying to get a light sentence or at least the case thrown out, right?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the concerns, because I can tell you that, she has a very accomplished attorney who is certainly well able to handle. These are all, not exactly the crimes of the century, right? There's a DUI here. There's a violation of probation. Mm-hmm. There's a necklace being stolen. Sean Holly's an excellent attorney. She can certainly handle those types of matters with her eyes closed. But she's got to be a little bit concerned about the perception that the court is having. You want to make sure the court believes that you're taking the matter very, very seriously, that you don't feel that just because of your position and your stature, you're entitled to anything over and above what, the average person, the hardworking blue-collar person who's in the same position you are. So it's got to be a mix of wanting to protect your image so that they can still see that you're this, glamorous star, and people can still see you in that fashion. But at the same time, you've got this judge who's earning, a very small percentage of what you're earning, and they're in there day in and day out, and all of a sudden you come in with all this attention. It's going to be very tempting for them not to, try to quote unquote make a lesson out of you. And that's the last thing that, any lawyer wants for their client. So, I'm sure that there's a couple of things that have happened in that courtroom that her lawyer had no part of and wanted no part of. There was one part, Matt, I don't even know if you noticed, she had the F word painted on her fingernails.
Yes, it's the little fingernail thing.
Yeah. I mean, I got to believe that she, had some idea of what she was doing when she did that. It was either a subliminal message or some kind of maybe empowerment on her part. And she didn't realize maybe now that with digital imagery, when you take a picture like that, you can pull up what you're writing. People were able to read her notes from the photos that were taken by the journalists in the court that day. And they certainly picked up on the fact that, she had a manicure that was sending a very, a strong message, shall we say, to whoever was reading it. So her lawyer had a heart attack when she saw the posts the next day and when people discovered that, So, calls went out, Lindsay, you can't be wearing that to court anymore. Things like that the lawyer, of course, is trying to control their client as much as possible. And then here's the other problem that you have. You've got clients who, since their celebrity, let's say, have had nothing but people telling them and giving them pretty much what they want.
Yes. And
it's very hard to get these people to understand that it's a different arena now, that you're not in control of the arena. We're not directing a video shoot. This isn't law and order. It's a real courtroom. This judge has power over you and your case. And the ultimate thing you want to do is make the case go away. One of the things that I do when I get either a high profile case or a celebrity client is to try to manage those expectations. The vast majority of matters that I've handled involving entertainers, some of them don't make the press at all because we were able to quietly resolve them before they really gather much attention. And that's always in the best interest of the client. It's very rare that these types of things really, bolster public opinion in you. Lindsay's case might be a little bit different because people are focusing on what she's wearing and her jewelry, but in the end, you got to watch out being made a laughing stock, in the papers and on television as you're coming in, trying to think you're a rock star or a movie star, and then some judge says, okay, 90 days in the hole. So it's a balancing test, and the hardest thing sometimes is managing the client's expectations. So I think at some point you're going to hopefully see her lawyer saying, let's tone this down. Let's get this down to where we could try to resolve maybe this matter without having to go to trial.
Well,
we'll have to see.
But the attorney, don't they have a strong say or advisory role as far as the presentation? And wasn't there some conflict? I mean, they were briefly apart. I don't know, she either fired her or the attorney stepped away or something. I heard a little bit about that. You wonder what's going on behind the closed doors between the two people. Right.
And you don't want to try to, imagine that necessarily there's a conflict. It could be any number of things. It could be that, they decided to go in a different direction. It could be that they decided there was some other, maybe plan of attack that one side didn't agree with. You're really in battle with this person. You're in that foxhole. You're in the trench with this person. And yes, as a lawyer, you want to win the case, of course. But at the same time, it's your client's reputation, life, and freedom that's on the line. So what they think and how they want things to go, has to carry some weight. But it's a balancing test. There's many times when, we've said to clients, if that's the plan, if that's the strategy that you want to go with, I can't be standing up there next to you. And, it's a pleasure working with you. And I'll see you later. And I think that might have happened here. And then in the end, the Lohan camp realized that, she's a competent, very well-known attorney in L.A. County. And, maybe we ought to listen to what she's got to say about how to resolve this case. And sure enough, she ended up keeping her out of jail, for those initial issues. And now it looks like this case is going to be heading to trial. I mean, can you imagine what that trial is going to be like with respect to media attention?
Yeah, I guess, I've been in a court many times. Of course, I'm nowhere near being celebrity, but I come from a place of respect, and I feel like that you have to dress appropriately to the environment and even to the case. I mean, I'm thinking of one case in particular that I felt like we kind of overdressed. We should not have worn our suits and tie. And whereas most times we do, but in some situations I feel like that works against us. But in thinking about Lindsay Lohan, I'm thinking that maybe being glamorous is not going to help her. It might help her on the PR side, but in front of that judge, I just can't see that serving. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the judge that you have to worry about, because now, they've declared that the case is going to go to trial. They're not interested in the plea bargain. So now you have this delicate balance again where you try to think about who that jury is going to be and how you want to present yourself in front of that jury. And, any trial lawyer that tells you that they don't think about what their client should wear and advise their client on what they should wear is either lying to you or, should not be in a courtroom. When you're on trial with somebody, no matter what kind of case it is, that jury is looking at your client all the time. Okay? Even when there's a witness on the stand, they're sneaking peeks back at your client. They're trying to figure out what the person is thinking. Ooh, did that testimony surprise them? Did that testimony hurt them? What are they doing now? And so I always tell clients to imagine that you're being watched 100% of the time. because chances are that's what's happening. Maybe even the judge is starting to look at you just to try to get an idea of your demeanor and your, how you're taking the case. So that might help Lindsay, being an actress, and just maybe she'll be able to think that, I have to portray a certain appearance and I have to do that all the time. The longer the trial drags on, the harder it is to kind of play that role. And, you're always better off just being yourself. But the lawyer has to fashion what he or she thinks is the message that you want to try to convey. Is it you're contrite? Is it that you're strong? Is it that you're whatever it is? There was a big case out in California where two young men were accused of killing their parents in the Menendez case. And one of the things that affected that jury, which ended up finding them not guilty of murder, was that their lawyer had them dressed in these very warm kind of collegey sweaters as opposed to the suit and tie.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, you got to think about these things to try to make people feel comfortable dealing with you. At the same time, like you said before, you have to show some deference to the court in the situation that you're in. So, Ms. Lohan's not charged with murder. She's charged with taking a necklace. Apparently, the defense is going to be that the necklace was loaned. So it seems like a very narrow issue that's going to be at trial. She's not denying that she was there. She's not denying that she wore it. He's not denying that she was there and that they had been discussing lending jewelry and all of that. So, it's not that heavy a case to put it into legal terms. And frankly, the only reason the judge is really considering jail time in her case is because her number of her prior records, her prior arrests.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's what's causing the problem. She's been on this roll where she seems to be in court, more often than I am. So I mean, it's a difficult thing for her to try to figure out what's in her best interest. But right after that, what this sounds like is going to require her defense. Matt, is going to require her to probably take the stand, and I think that's when the spectacle will hit Roman gladiator proportions. If she ends up having to testify in her own defense.
Well, you talked a lot about, the jury's watching you, but her situation isn't so severe. I mean, isn't it possible to have a bench trial where you're just simply talking to the judge? I mean, does that have an impact, or the judges are pretty immune? Well, I'm thinking they're people, too.
They're people, but they're people who see the vast majority of people brought in front of them being convicted, okay? So let's remember, 90-something% of people who go to trial get convicted, okay? It's a very rare thing to get. Well, you know why? For any number of reasons, but it's a very high conviction rate, in criminal defense trials.
Are you talking about New York?
More often than not. I can only really speak to New York. Here in Nassau County, where I do a lot of litigation, and even in Manhattan, where we have our other offices, it's a high conviction rate. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which maybe that'd be the topic of a whole other show. So judges are routinely seeing these people come in, they plead guilty. Remember, a guilty plea, by the way, is a conviction also. So you have all these guilty pleas going on. You have these trial convictions. And so I don't think anyone in their right mind would waive a jury in this case. Waiving a jury in a criminal case takes away probably the strongest protection you have in the Constitution, which is that the prosecution has to convince the entire jury beyond a reasonable doubt. When you get a bench trial, the prosecution only has to convince the judge.
Yes.
You're down to convincing one person. And so if I could maybe get that juror who's willing to listen to our angle, our version of the events, to recognize the weaknesses in the government's case, I get a mistrial, and maybe the prosecution won't try it a second time. Or maybe I can try the case again, having heard all the evidence. So we're much better prepared. We know what's going to be happening. We know what the government's arguments are. So it is only in the rarest of cases, that a savvy lawyer is going to waive a jury on a criminal case. So, and it ain't happening in Lindsay's case. And it's not happening in Lindsay's case. Don't forget, you're in L.A. They don't convict a celebrity for killing their spouse, with all kinds of evidence directly connecting them. They are, enamored with celebrity there, and celebrities do seem to get a huge break out there on a lot of these high profile cases. So I can't imagine why anyone would not want to take a chance of getting one or two jurors there who are so, in love with the whole situation, are hoping to, frankly, maybe they'll get an autograph from Lindsay Lohan if they acquit her, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things going on there.
Oh, no.
You think I'm joking, but well, a lot of these things go through the prosecution's mind out there when they're selecting these jurors, and they want to be sure to be very careful that they're not going to get people who are starstruck and are have this illusion somehow that they'll be able to have some connection with the defendant after the case is over. Yeah. All these are factors that come in when you try a high-profile person like Lindsay Lohan. You had Robert Blake. You had O.J. Simpson. Phil Spector. There have been some very big, high-profile criminal cases out there in California, and we've seen some very unusual verdicts and results there, and partly because, I think, of the celebrity culture. It's similar to, like, Disney, okay? There are whole websites, Matt, blog topics, websites. There are specialists in suing Disney because in Orlando, in Florida, they do not lose down there. Okay? They don't lose down there because they employ 90% of the county. Yeah. So it's a very different thing. So out in California, particularly in LA County where this is going to be tried, a lot of people have a lot of connection and are very happy that, the movie industry is out there in Hollywood. Yeah. So it's a different kettle of fish. I think if this case was tried in Iowa, it'd be a lot different than if it's tried in L.A. Right. So that's going to raise the circus value of it too. Right. Well, Oscar, we obviously took some time to talk about Lindsay Lohan and, have a little bit of fun with it. But you obviously brought up a lot of these legal issues, which is the core of this show. Now, how does Lindsay's case pertain to the average viewer that's watching this? Are there any takeaway lessons in your mind? Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that, these cases they're kind of extreme cases, right? Things are done in these cases that would never be done for other defendants, right? They're not lining up, photographers on both sides and letting you stroll down the middle. They call the case as soon as she comes in. She doesn't have to wait for her, her or her lawyer's turn. They get her in and they get her out. That's mostly not for her celebrity treatment. That's just so that the business of the court system can get right back onto it. We have celebrities here in New York. We let the court know that we're going to be coming with them. They'll let us come in through an entrance there, right through the metal detector. And it's not any benefit for them. It's that we just want to get on with our business at hand. So let's let the circus come in and let the circus go out, and then we can go back to what we do every other day of the year. So, it's hard for some folks sometimes to say, well, my case can't be anything like Lindsay's, but you learn a lot from them if you're an average defendant. And, and first of all, it's that you got to have a good relationship with your attorney, and you got to be able to balance what you want and what you think is right for yourself with what your attorney says is right for the case and how they think the case should go. And you got to kind of give up some of your, control sometimes to try to make sure you have a great dialogue and are really listening to the advice that you're getting. And you got to trust your lawyer. If you don't trust your lawyer and know that they have their best interests, your best interests at heart and that they're going to do what they can for you, then, you better find a lawyer that you do have that relationship with and that trust in, because that is number one. The other things that we can learn from her case, perhaps, is, it's not usually a good idea to talk in the public about your case. And, she's already...
tweet about it.
To tweet about it, to talk about it, to irritate the judge.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
Not good. Not good. You will not be winning. You're going to have problems. You're going to also allow, one of the other things that is the strongest thing the defense has is that they don't really have to tell the government much about their case.
Right.
So you have a lot more element of surprise than the government does. Okay? So to give that up by just telling the whole world what your defense is and the proof that you have in that defense is very rarely a good idea. So
that's a good point.
Sometimes you put stuff out there as you get closer to jury trial. Maybe you want some articles to appear, favorable to you in the press. There's old strategists that engage in that and how to, get the right kind of spin at the right kind of time in the course of a criminal case. But at the same time, we're talking about for the average person, do not make comments to the press. It rarely helps you. If your case attracts media attention, no comment is your friend, because if your case has to go to trial, let the government hear what your defense is as you're rolling it out, not 2 months in advance, and, allow them to prepare. So loose lips, sink ships, they used to say in World War II, and it hasn't really changed much since then.
Well, I think in this particular case, we had a case of a runaway client, no?
Yeah, we've had that. I had clients, I had a client the other day, insisted on wearing his professional garb. I won't say what it is, but, he's got a particular uniform he wears for his job, and he insisted on wearing it in front of the judge, trying to sway the judge that, hey, I'm this important person.
Yeah.
And I just kind of looked at me like, what is this, Halloween? The guy's in court,
Right.
What's going on? So try as you might to talk to your clients and tell them what you think is best. In the end, their case, their life.
Okay, great. Well, as we come down to the end of this particular premiere episode, Oscar, I want to take a few minutes and turn it over to you and basically share your thoughts, what you would like to discuss, or what's your vision going forward on this show.
Well, first of all, you can reach us through our blog, which is courtroomstrategy.com. You can find us if you look through the web, just put my name in, Oscar Michelen. You'll find the sites that I'm on and ways to reach me and Matt to give us ideas on topics that maybe you want to see discussed. But what I think, Matt, is these conversations that we have are a good way of maybe having an explanation for folks who aren't involved in the legal system to kind of learn about the things that you can be put through when you find yourself having to go into court. The whole purpose of my blog and the name of it, Courtroom Strategy, right, is looking at how issues that work out in real life, how do they get played out in court? Mm-hmm. What happens when certain things happen to you and now all of a sudden you got to explain yourself in a court? It's a very different thing than telling your side of the story, in a bar to your buddies or talking with your family perhaps over the dinner table. There are rules. It's rigid. There's preconceived notions. People have certain ideas going in as to what someone in your position is going to say or not say. And so how you present these issues in court is very important. And I think that trying to talk about that in general and how it relates to a lot of the different topics that we'll be discussing along the way is going to be important and good for our viewers to get a chance to kind of have some insight into an area that they probably don't have much resource for. Not a lot of people actually talk about, well, what ends up happening in court with that? Does that argument work? Yeah. Like you talked about today, how does the manner in which you dress affect a judge or a jury? Mm-hmm. And I think you'll see that there really aren't a lot of other avenues for people to have these kinds of discussions. So, we hope it's informative, and we hope that you're going to find it interesting. Please let us know if you do. Let us know if you don't as well. And we look forward to bringing more interesting topics to you in this area, and it's been a pleasure. Always good to see you and always good to talk to you.
Great. Thank you, Oscar. Well, to our audience members, thank you for joining us on our premiere episode of Courtroom Strategy with Oscar Michelen. As Oscar said, go check out his blog at courtroomstrategy.com. He has a Facebook page. And, of course, this show is being brought to you by Tempest Broadcasting at tempestbroadcasting.com. And so we hope you enjoy this. Feel free to email us. We'd love to hear from you. And so we can incorporate your ideas to future shows. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.